a focus group work on this, because I don't want to make an executive decision, because obviously my opinion only reflects my own. And I really want to have the graduate students' opinion represented. And another thing is like each of the two companies will give a presentation on February the 26th. I believe that's next Friday. Is that right? Correct? So Follett will present at 10 a.m. and the Barnes & Noble will present at 1:30 p.m. in one of the conference rooms, which is to be determined in physical facilities. It will be an open house, so whoever is interested is welcome to come. And also, I have two more things to share with you guys today. They are not on the agenda because they happen after the agenda has been sent out. So the first thing I would like to share with you guys is that at the last graduate council meeting, Dean Strauss announced the university's new policy regarding the Clark Fellowship. So, like their policy, in response to their policy of increase the stipend for the incoming PhD student, they are increasing $2,000 to $6,000 for incoming doctoral students for the Clark Fellowship to keep up with the rate of the THA stipend increase. There will be no increase for the continuing students. Recently two students has been chosen out of the early nominations for Clark Fellowship, and there will be 15 new openings expected in the coming academic year. So if those two students do not come, there will be 17 openings. And this is something I would like to share with you guys. And last thing on my agenda is internship suggestions. I don't know if you remember Bill McCarthy. He's from the Freshman Career Center. He came last semester to give us a presentation on, to get our opinions and input on internship opportunities for graduate students. So he is going to make a trip to the Washington, D.C. area next month. Part of this trip would include making visits to some employer sites to develop jobs and internships for the graduate students. And I will be meeting with him tomorrow to discuss further about it, and I need suggestions from you guys. So please let me know if there are any specific or particular companies you would like to, or you or your constituency would like to work for, or what type of internship or any other suggestions or ideas. Preferably get to me as early as possible, but I understand it takes time because you have to go. If you're gonna talk to your constituents, you will have to wait till the next departmental GSO meeting. So get back to me by next Friday, February 26th. I think this will be really helpful for the students, especially if you are graduating soon.
What time is that meeting tomorrow?
At 1 o'clock. Would you like to come?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, that's so much for me. Moving on to Vice President's report.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start with the employment and labor report. I want to get these members ratified by the Senate. We have a lot of people joining this semester because they're fired up about the Equal Pay, Equal Work campaign. So I'll need the approval from the Senate. I'll just list the names here and try to make this quick. Sheng, Sarah Marcus, John Walters, Francis Harrison, Chris Byram, Hao Zhang, Andy Pragus, and Kellum Throgmorton. So those are the names that have recently joined the Employment and Labor Committee. We need the Senate to ratify that. So if I can can get a motion to approve those.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I motion to ratify Grace Thagger, student affairs.
So, your name?
Grace Thagger, student
Grace.
affairs.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Sure. Andrew from economics.
Intro from economics. Is there any objections? Seeing none, the new members have been ratified.
Okay, thank you. And feel free to join. We're meeting basically every Tuesday at 3 p.m. in the GSO conference room. This is really where we work out the duties and where we're going forward with labor issues and, importantly, the equal pay for work campaign as well. So we met yesterday. This is our second meeting. What we talked about was breaking up into different groups on how we would go further with this equal pay for work campaign. We've talked about advertising, so we're going to talk about getting advertising either on billboards, have yard signs. We're going to check into Press and Sun Bulletin. But we'd also urge you, if you're in support of this, to talk about it during your discussion sections or your large classrooms. Some instructors are in full support of this, and they'd be willing to give you, 5 minutes in the beginning of class to talk about it. Because it is important. This impacts your students, and I think we need their full support in this. We also talked about getting multicultural groups involved to help with this, right? We need to reach across different groups, not just TAs. And then we also talked about getting the department sub-organizations involved, which kind of brings up my point here is that the Employment and Labor Committee members want to meet with all of the departments, okay? So we will be getting in contact with the president, and hopefully we can set up a time where they can meet with you and discuss any labor issues or more specifically the Equal Pay, Equal Work campaign. So be looking for those emails, okay? I have a question, and I'd like actually to go around and ask each individual department how often you meet as a department sub-organization. So this was what one of the concerns the Employment and Labor Committee had, was that sub-organizations aren't meeting enough and they're not informed of what's going on. So, you want to go in alphabetical order, or you want to go around the room?
Alphabetical order is probably easier.
Okay.
So we start with anthropology.
Yeah, so how frequently are you meeting?
Joe meets once a month about.
Okay.
We have pretty big attendance.
Great. Yeah. Pretty active.
Art history.
Do you want to get the next meeting date?
That,
If they have it, makes sense.
Okay.
yeah. Do you have a meeting date available in your next meeting? Not sure. Okay.
Should we ask them when Joe will be able to run things? Okay. Bioengineering. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
How frequently are you meeting with your department sub-organization? Once a month? Okay.
Do you know when your next meeting is?
Yeah, probably it's not much. In March.
Do you have a date? No.
Biology.
We meet every other week, and our next meeting is the 29th. At 4.
On point.
Nice.
Chemistry.
We only meet
As needed. How frequently does as needed generally happen?
every
Okay. That sounds like what's the sense? Reading it all, so good job. Comparative literature.
We try to meet every other week, but not that mostly happens. We've not really relaxed. It didn't happen this week, but our next meeting is the 24th.
Economics.
We meet at least once a month, but it really does depend, because sometimes we'll meet every week. But they're rather informal. We're not like, it's nothing like here, we have minutes and an agenda and so forth.
Okay.
When we meet, you know when you're meeting next?
It's gonna be not this Friday, but the following Friday.
Education.
We're typically executive board meets twice a month, but as a full organization, it's not possible to meet because it's all off campus. Like they're not teaching every week. Most of our department's master's students.
Electrical engineering.
Only needed.
What's that?
Only needed.
Only when needed? Alright. Have you met this semester?
Not yet.
No. Well, it's only been 2 weeks, so it doesn't really count. Alright. English.
We meet as is needed, but particularly once a month, and we also have a subgroup which is critical reading group, and our next meeting is next Friday, so it's February 26th.
Thank you. Geography is not here.
We meet, yeah.
Geography is here.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's for sure. We meet every 2 or 3 weeks. Today was our meeting. We have our senator is not available because for personal issues, so he's dropping that position. We are filling in. So
Okay.
Just make sure, yeah, you said.
Did you have a new plan for your next meeting?
in 2 weeks we will have a meeting and we will decide our new senator. Thank you.
Thanks. Geology.
We meet every Friday around 4:30.
History.
Once or twice a month.
Are you a new senator?
Yeah, kind of. I guess if I'm
Well, it's because you crossed out the alternative senator, so if
Yeah.
that's the case, can you get the new paperwork?
I was new last semester.
Oh.
The president of our department, I've asked him a couple of times to email you about it. He just hasn't. I replaced the senator kind of midstream last semester.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Okay. Management.
We meet every Monday.
Math.
We meet as needed, which usually ends up being once or twice a semester.
Philosophy.
Every other week, and we're meeting tomorrow at noon.
Political science.
The department has 2 meetings a week. All students are supposed to attend. Usually it's like 80%. Technically, I guess it counts as 1 because it's back to back from 1 to 3. And our next meeting is 2 to 3 this Friday.
Psychology.
I mean, as needed, but we are already out of town last week.
And public administration.
Yeah, but I didn't know you were the alternate, it's not.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. We meet every week on Tuesdays at 5 to 5:45, but the next public meeting isn't until March 1st. So this depends on who you want to talk to. Usually it's the same people because no one comes to our monthly meetings.
Alright, low attendance.
Small program too, so you
Yeah. Alright, social work.
We meet bi-weekly on Mondays at 1 o'clock, and the next meeting's on the 29th.
Sociology.
We usually meet twice a month.
Student affairs.
We meet weekly, Fridays at noon. We have something going on this Friday, but the 26th is the next one that you'll be able to come to.
Trip.
We meet every Thursday at 10. But we're only like
Still good. Alright. That's all.
Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. As I said,
Did I get everyone?
You get everyone?
Yeah.
So, like I said, the Employment and Labor Committee members want to come to one of your meetings, so, we'll be getting in contact with your president, and doing that. Because it makes sense to try to see what is going on in your department. You can't always represent everything that's going on and how everyone feels in your department. So, that's one of the concerns from the Employment and Labor Committee. And then lastly, that we talked about, is discussions about tactics, what we want to do, organizing. So there's been discussions about grade sit-ins at the administration buildings, right? And other kind of escalating tactics.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Rallies, petitions, call-ins.
Yes.
Okay, so there was a call-in today.
Right, so there's also going to be call-ins. The GSEU sent around an email to all TAs about a call-in where you can call into the administrators and say, hey, I'm a TA and I don't like this this roadmap proposal or your project that you're doing. So, and basically that's just basically to slow down their work and to jam up the lines and to show that we're really pissed off about that. So there's going to be call-ins. We'll have a set schedule eventually worked out here where it makes sense to do with a big group of people. And there'll be some other escalating tactics that we'll share with you. But we're working with the GSEU, again, as I said last semester, to collaborate with this. And that's it for that. So,
Can I share something?
yes.
So our department, every Friday we have a seminar time where we discuss a paper or listen to someone talk. This week it happened to be free, so that the grad students kind of hijacked it, and we're gonna have an open forum with the faculty on this problem. So maybe that's something that you guys wanna maybe implement in your departments and see how the faculty feel, or how the grad directors deal with the situation.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Just jump to it.
Okay, that's good.
I was also gonna ask, have we discussed the current update about the negotiation between the school and the departments yet?
So as you all know, or you should know, the administration said that they'd match up to $500 per graduate student by the department. So if the department puts up $500, the administration will put up $500. They didn't negotiate this with us. This was with the chairs of each of the departments last semester. I think it helped that we pressured them and put some pressure on them, but they never said this forthcomingly. So in the last meeting we had with President Stanger, Provost Neiman, we kind of had heard about that they were doing this, and they weren't forthcoming with it. So we kept like dragging out, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And after 6 or 7 times asking them, they finally came forward and said, well, we're willing to do this $500. Which to me is not enough, especially for the STEM fields that I think you see the biggest discrepancy. And President Stanger's like, well, this is a Harper problem. He keeps emphasizing it's a Harper problem. He hasn't said why exactly, but I think that's where the biggest uproar is, I guess, from those pockets of grassroots. That's my guess, but there's probably some other reasons.
And the university has said that because they're handling it on their own, they don't need the GSO to be involved anymore, and there's no reason to have any further meetings on this topic. It's pretty much how we concluded our last meeting.
Well, they didn't say exact those words, but they
it's
pretty much gave us this
implied.
thought, yeah. And they never really see it as a negotiation with us. They just, came, meet with us, and they pretty much inform us what they are gonna do, and that's it.
Well, I think everybody has a comment.
It's my understanding the $500 per grad student they're willing to match is only for newly incoming students as well. It's not.
That's not correct.
No, that's not
For the
correct.
continuing students.
Yeah, just for continuing students.
It's at the discretion of the
It's for
department.
everyone.
Yes,
So-
It's for
exactly.
anyone they
And that's
decide to give
important.
it to.
That's important, is what Landra said. This is up to the departments. This is what the administration's doing. They say, oh, we come up with this thing, and, it sounds great, and then they have some issue with it, but then they screw up, and then they say, oh, let the departments deal with it. We'll make the decisions, but after we screw it up, you can, the departments can figure it out, and we don't want to put the departments in that kind of bind, because we want to have a good relationship with our departments. So. And I've spoken with some people, and they said, well, my department's not going to be able to do that. They are strapped for cash, be able to do this kind of thing.
break and you know, he was freaking out when he realized this.
So,
Which is ironic considering they wouldn't join us when we were fighting against it, and now they're getting screwed.
And then there's the eternal problem that we already have mentioned to the university, which is you're taking funds that can be used for other resources like conference and travel, and you're making the university apply it to, or the department apply it to particular individual students, and that's taking away from everyone's, professionalization funds. And the university said, no, we're not doing that, but we've heard from departments that yes, that is in fact what's happening.
well, that's a good point you made. I can see that very clearly. But to all senators, I think that's a call for us to pressure our department to basically talk to the people in charge, not directly to the boss, but maybe the graduate program director or something, or call them into a meeting and everybody sits down and talks to them. That way, it's going to be a collective force, and individuals target can put direction. But
and just to build off that conversation, Dave, I think that if individual departments start to do that, members of the Employment Labor Committee be willing to join people in those conversations. They're difficult ones to have, especially with someone that's the head of your department, or you're in that department. But someone from the Employment Labor Committee who wants to have those conversations with directors or department heads, they would certainly be willing to help to be there and be supportive in those environments.
the reason for that is because in that kind of meeting that they had with the provost and the president, it was left to departments that were really rectified for the students to make the decision. And I heard that in that meeting, a couple of faculty and some departments were really vigorous about this issue, but they were like trying to shut them down in some way. Of course, they have some say over it in those kind of situations. But if you fire up your faculty as much as possible, they will be able to speak for you before these people and do that. At least kind of something out. Psychology is decided to go ahead and accept the offer of matching $500. And personally, I've always said that even though it's benefiting psychology, I'm not really happy about that because not every department, I don't think any department will actually make that decision either. So it's just like benefiting 5% of the entire GSO population on campus. But if this was a collective thought from every department, could have in some way be able to negotiate something better that would apply to every student, just not just the rich departments.
Okay, so stay tuned for that. We'll keep you posted on that. So the next thing is the CBC committee. Today, we're going to give you the proposed changes. I'm going to turn it over to my members to talk about what changes. We focused on the duties of the officers. And because it was kind of such a squeezed election cycle, we're kind of didn't get to go through the entire Constitution. Anand sent out the proposed changes. And typically how this works is, and this is what we'll continue to do, is that we're not going to vote on anything today for the changes. You'll bring this back to your departments and see what they think, what they like, what they don't like, and then bring it to the next Senate meeting and we'll discuss what changes you'd like to see. And then the CBC committee will make adjustments to that. And then the senators will decide, they'll vote, whether to put it up to the general election. So say the senators, they vote, they say, yes, we like all these changes. Then it would go up to the general election with the candidates as well. So you'll see, like, on the election ballot, you'll see the candidates, and then you'll also see the proposed changes you'll vote on, right? Just if you haven't experienced this before. So, any questions there before we turn it over to the members? What we're doing here? Okay. So, we didn't print out all these because it would have been a lot of paper, but we did send this to you. We're just going to go down in order on from the Constitution, so we'll start with the President. And I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah. Can everybody hear me without standing up? You good? Okay. So we made a few changes to the duties of the Office of the President. Most of this is language issues, just to kind of streamline and make sure there's not a lot of overlapping sections with other parts of the Constitution. But some of the notable changes are that we've inserted a line indicating that the president shall be the chief executive officer of GSO, which is how the president's office acts currently, but the Constitution actually doesn't technically allow for that. So we want to make sure that that's a codified thing, that you know, Chen Chen could be taking action, going to meetings, and speaking up on our behalf as the GSO.
Is there a formal definition for chief executive officer?
In what
their
sense?
duties and responsibilities?
The chief executive officer is the president it shall act as the chief executive
And what
officer.
does that mean?
That it's the president.
So
It's defining the office as being able to take the executive actions
And
that the
what
Senate.
executive actions are there?
So basically, what we're trying to say is that the president, as the acts as the chief of the executive committee. So, for instance, the vice president.
Okay.
Yes.
So they're in charge of the executive committee?
Basically, yes.
Which takes action on behalf of the Senate.
Okay, so the definition of what a chief executive officer is the head of the executive committee of the GSO.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That should probably be in there.
Yeah.
It's defined in other sections. The president is named as the chief of, or the.
So there's another section that says what a chief executive officer is responsible for. and
There's another section
they're
that
codified.
indicates that the president is the head of the executive committee,
Okay.
which is what we're saying.
But here it's just clearly stated. It was abstractly stated in the previous constitution, not exactly like stating clearly that the president is the CEO, and that
Okay.
should be stated. That's
But
maybe one
CEOs
item.
vary in their powers, is what I'm saying. Like
The powers are
Like,
defined
a
by the
CEO
rest
of a company is different than a CEO of a country.
Well, here we're saying that you're the chief of the executive committee of the GSO.
Okay.
And the responsibilities are defined throughout the rest of the president's duties within the Constitution as well.
There's
Other-
another hand up there.
Can I just ask one question? What would the president be if? Like, what else is the president? Or is it just sort of implied in fact that the president is the president?
It's implied in that it's the president. It's not clearly stated in the Constitution. It's the matter of clarification and making it clear that this is what we expect from the president.
Yeah.
So it's more just making sure that everybody understands that that's an actual fact rather than just
Instead of
an implied
assuming
fact.
that that's what the person.
We don't want to assume that they're going to take certain actions, and that's also defined in some of the other points that we had. Another fairly major, question. Another major change that we implemented, suggest actually, is that the president currently is supposed to be nominating, and with the Senate's consent, advice and consent, filling positions such as the treasurer, the office manager, and the assistant to the president. Those are constitutionally defined. It is currently constitutionally defined as that. There is a deletion that we've made that is some overlapping language as far as the appointed officers. There's a section there. And we've removed that from the president's duties of office.
Question about
Yes.
that. So,
It's not the entirety that the president will still and is still tasked with in the duties of the Constitution, appointing these officers with the advice and consent of the Senate.
of the
as it-
Senate, I mean, I don't know, I
It
thought that it was.
indicates in the Constitution that it's with the advice and consent of the Senate.
Yeah, it's simply that.
When did we?
Article
people
4,
last-
Section
was that
D,
close?
point 1, point B.
B, yeah.
And that would be changed to the executive board?
No,
Or
it's,
did I
it's,
see
the
that
president
wrong?
is still it's the same language. The deletion is if an office or position remains vacant for more than 31 days to the end of that point. That is getting
Oh, okay.
deleted because it is placed in section F of that same article.
Okay, so it's getting moved.
Yeah, it's just moving around to keep that point with the appointed officers.
That's what it is now.
And avoid redundancies.
Yeah, it is the same thing as exists, it's just moving it and making it associated with the appointed officers and not necessarily with the president. It's just,
I should have probably said that a lot of this is more clarification than
really-
wording, rather than major
really
changes.
clarification
Um,
changes, it's,
but, so, go ahead.
An insertion that is a fairly major change that that a lot of people weren't aware of, I wasn't aware of until I looked at the faculty senate, is that the president, we're indicating, we're adding a point that the president shall act or appoint a delegate as non-voting liaison with the faculty senate. As per the faculty senate constitution, GSO is allowed an ex officio member representative on the faculty senate to represent GSO there. Currently, our constitution doesn't account for that. This line would account for that, allow the president to either act as that person or to nominate someone to fill that role. The last major change that we're going to add is that currently there's no line indicating that the president needs to actually do things that the Senate is directed them to do that are not listed in those duties. So we're adding another point at the end of the president's duty description. Any other duties assigned to the office by the Senate. Just indicating that that is their responsibility, not just assumed responsibility.
Is it a majority of the Senate agreeing that new powers put in place?
It is based on the current voting rules for the Senate. So whatever the voting rules are for specific majority or 2/3 majority or it is based on those current rules. It is not changing any of those voting rules at all. Okay?
All right, so Vice President, let's turn this over to Flash, and Treasurer. Why don't you do them both together? Hopefully we can get through quicker.
Okay, first of all, if there's any problem understanding anything, please let me know.
So we're working on the Vice President position here.
The big change in the vice president's role is that the vice president is currently chairing three committees. That's the CBC committee, the Employment and Labor Committee, as well as the Elections Committee. We had a huge discussion about this, a very long discussion, and we decided to remove the vice president from the Elections Committee, considering that there's already a chief elections officer there, along with other graduate students, to manage the elections. That gives the vice president more time to work on other committees. This in effect changes it brings changes in other sections as well. It brings changes to Article 6, Elections Committee, where basically we remove the role of vice president from all the points mentioned there. That includes, let's say, it says now that the chief elections officer is the sole chair and a non-voting member of the elections committee. The elections committee shall be staffed by the chief elections officer and at least 3 volunteer graduate students. The elections committee shall be in existence for the spring semester until the Senate ratifies the election, at which time its mandate ends.
I was just wondering, so is the chief elections chair, is it gonna be elected or chosen at the beginning of the semester? Who's gonna form this committee if the vice president is not taking care of it?
No, nobody, the process remains as it is right now. It's just that the president's role from working in the elections committee has been removed. Electing the chief elections officer and the whole election process remains the same. removing the vice president from the elections committee brings us to another change in Article 6, Section G, where earlier it was mentioned that in case of a deadlock, the vice president will cast the deciding vote. Now, in case of a deadlock, the chief elections officer will cast the deciding vote. That is what we are proposing. Any comments on that?
I just want to point out that doing this also helps if the vice president is running for office again.
And that was one of the major points that made us
So-
do this.
Yeah, I think that should be clear to everyone as well. That's a benefit to doing this.
The prior constitution was stated that in case the vice president wants to run for the office, then he or she would not be included in the elections committee. But we felt like that would likely be one that might be a possibility. Number two, the VP already had about 3 committees being added, so we just decided to relieve the VP completely of that responsibility from the committee, from the elections committee. He or she can focus on other stuff.
Great point. Thank you.
Point F, there was some ambiguity regarding in case the vice president is unable to fulfill the remainder of his term of office, the executive committee may appoint with the approval of the Senate an acting vice president who will assume all the duties listed above and be granted all the privileges according to an elected vice president. The ambiguity here is that what if the vice president, steps down from his or her position during the fall semester and the elections don't take place till the next semester in the spring. So we decided to add like a small line there at the end that says that whoever is elected as the vice president by the executive committee and the approval of the Senate will act for the remainder of the term, that is till the elections can be held again in the spring semester. Those were the only changes in the vice president section. Moving on. Oh yeah, in the end we have mentioned that any other duties assigned, in the proposed model, the vice president will have to do any other duties assigned to the office by the Senate. This line has been mentioned in all the executive board members, except for the president.
So we want to do the treasurer's position?
Yeah, do you want to do that later?
No, do it now, if you're not.
In the treasurer's position section, basically there were a lot of redundancies, so I've tried to remove them along with everyone here. So point E, point G, and point H in the current constitution, they sound kind of redundant. Basically, point E says that treasurer shall notify organizations of their budget allocations, which is already mentioned in point C, which says that the treasurer shall chair the budget committee and shall inform at least 2 officers of each GSO sub-organization of GSO budget requirements by March 15. Point G says the treasurer is responsible for ensuring that the GSO contributes no more than its fair share to various campus-wide activities. This felt kind of like it's like a given that the treasurer has to be responsible for the budget, and it's not something that needs to be mentioned in the constitution because there's no one to judge him or her regarding the fair share. Who will be judging the fair share for the treasurer, or like who defines the fair share? So that point we propose to remove that as well. And point H, which says the treasurer must present a report on the state of the GSO budget at the end of each semester to the Senate, which is again already mentioned in the treasurer shall make a financial report to the Senate at each regular meeting and shall make a published semester report to the graduate student body.
So redundancy there.
Yeah.
Alright, moving on. Let's see. So let's do the GPPMA.
Okay. The GBPMA, one change we made was that the GBPMA shall represent, quote, women, gays and lesbians, people of color, and working class students. We replaced that phrase with graduate students and faculty of diverse gender identification, sexual orientation, race, culture, religion, ability, socioeconomic status, and from all backgrounds, so that we cover all our bases. We also recommend that the GVPMA should serve as a member of the event.
So there were some redundancies that were also existed. We tried to clear that out. Just like the president, we said the office manager shall manage the GSO office, which is basically the primary responsibility. And we further enumerated by saying this task should include placing necessary orders, managing and properly filing documents, attending to guests during office hours, and other related tasks. That's number one. It's a needs addition. Number two remains the same. Number three, which is the new thing we added, is shall take the minutes of, or not a whole new thing. Shall take the minutes of Senate meetings and distribute them to the Senate members latest by the weekend prior to each scheduled Senate meeting. And we made that weekend prior because of the concern we heard from some senators last semester that they wanted to have the minutes and the information at least the weekend before the meeting so they can be able to go through the information and digest it. And that was why we made that change. Okay. Number 4 on the new proposal states shall keep records of all official GSO correspondence. This was initially stated as one of the duties of the president, shall be in charge of this correspondence and shall keep record of them. But we thought that while the president can be in charge of this correspondence, it should be kept as a record by the office manager. So basically, they have access to this and archive them just for future purposes as well as for necessary access. The next was shall provide the Constitution, bylaws, and other official documents accessible to authorized personnel as the need arises. This was initially the responsibility of the vice president, and it was joined to the fact that the vice president shall chair the CBC committee. So we felt like it should be the responsibility of the office manager to have access and keep this Constitution, bylaws, and other documents, and to provide them to anyone who is authorized to have access to them. Yes.
Who is authorized?
So, for instance, the Constitution, every senator has authority to the Constitution, right? And the GSO member should also have access to that. So, in case it's needed.
So who's unauthorized then?
Well, whoever is not a part of GSO, whoever we decided does not have direct access to this.
It's a public university though, so doesn't everyone have access?
The proposed constitution doesn't restrict access to the constitution.
It does not restrict access either. We did not say someone is not authorized. We just say.
But somebody has to be doing the authorization, which means that there's a restriction there.
The only change here is that if anyone in the executive board or the Senate wants, someone to get the constitution, they should ask the office manager rather than the vice president that he or she is not responsible to get it.
So the constitution will no longer be posted on the.
No, it will be.
No.
Everything remains the same. It's just that if it says here that the vice president shall provide to members of Senate upon request up-to-date copies of the GSO constitution and bylaws.
Okay.
So
That was
it's
previously
in the vice president. So we are moving that from the VP's role to the office manager's role.
So it's available to everyone.
Yeah, it's available to everyone.
It's
You just-
still available.
Why
It's
don't
just that
we
it's
take it out of the Constitution?
What's that?
Why don't we just take that out of the Constitution, put it in a different spot, and say GSO Constitution will be available to everyone?
Well,
Go to the
then-
website.
That is something we can say it's definitely available, but maybe all the documents, maybe some like I don't know. Are the bylaws also accessible on the website?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's just relieving this load from the vice president and saying instead of the vice president being the one responsible for that, it should be the office manager who would be able to attend to that. If anybody decides to request for this document directly through the office and not going to the website.
Feel free to go to the website and get it.
Any clear enough?
Yeah. it's clear. It just shouldn't seem restricted or concealed at all. It is on the website though.
Yeah, it's just that it
So
was.
I just don't understand why it's even in here, but that's cool.
Well, we didn't want to take it off. And
We
he
can,
was
if
there
you wanna
before.
take it off, we can talk about taking it off.
We
the
can
next
take it
one.
off, so.
Semantic additions necessitate negations. So by saying some people are authorized, it just comes off weird, is what I'm saying. And I'm not even a senator, so.
Well, if we decide we wanna make that a change, definitely, it's up with the Senate. You guys are empowered to make that.
We just give suggestions anyway.
Alright. Okay, good. I think, those were the major changes. 9 and 10, item 9 and number 10 were basically previously item number 6 in the old constitution. The only change was that we added that the office manager will also provide support for properly completing this form. So for whoever needs some clarification on certain points on this form, to go to the office hours, and the office manager would be in the position to clarify things to them. Now that may require that the office manager is vast at filling all those forms correctly, and that might be something they have to learn as soon as they attain office. But that's the other addition. And number 11 is just basically we say any other duties assigned by the GSO president. Okay.
All right, thank you. So please bring this back to your departments. If you have any issue, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, can you send out the Constitution with the proposed changes in an email? So then that way we can have a record of it, because for me, it's pointless just to have what specific sections you are changing if I don't have the rest of the Constitution to reference it to. So even if you just type up what the changes are and send that out and we can get the old Constitution off the website, it would make it a lot easier for us to propose it to our constituents because they'd have a frame of reference.
Actually, this
The email that was sent out to everyone, it lists all the changes and the effect it has on the rest of the constitution and the bylaws. Yes, it can be done, like you said, you send out an email with the whole entire constitution with the changes in it, but the email that was sent, I'm just mentioning it, that the email that was sent out, it reflects all the changes that have been reflected due to a change somewhere.
I didn't get that email.
well, I think
The
if you were on the
changes?
senators list, I guess, I mean, it was sent out together with
You
the
need to update
agenda
the
for this
senators
meeting
list
today.
that you use.
And we just printed this
I
out
changed it
directly
in the
from there
document.
and we just,
No,
Okay.
they
I
need
mean,
to
it's not
email
done
But I
that
think you
way.
have a different
Fine,
document.
I just
they,
didn't
they
know
need to
that.
email me
Okay.
so that I can add them up.
Ones,
Okay.
the exact old duties and the new proposed duties.
Yeah.
So you can basically cross-check for everything.
Okay.
So there's a bit of a problem you guys have currently. Article 6, section B, and, well, minor thing in section B, major thing in section C, it references the vice president and its role as the co-chair of the elections committee, which is no longer.
I mentioned that.
Oh, so you're going to be.
So these, yeah, that's, you may not be on the email yet because, you know, you're a new senator,
So,
but,
wait, can I just make that announcement real quick?
Okay.
If you are a new senator this semester and you're not getting these emails, please contact our GSO office manager via email to tell him to add you to his listserv.
So those will be amended as
And
well.
we'll resend this email out.
this has the amended changes that, you know, when you change something from the vice president's position, also changes other things throughout, right? Usually, I mean, usually that's the case. So we have that in this document where it changes other things in.
I'll just, can I jump in? There are some changes to committees that didn't make it into this document that was sent to the Senate that address the issues that you're talking about.
Okay.
The elections committee and the events committee, we changed. So those, we did make changes to the committees, or the articles.
So the
about
relevant
committee.
stuff for the vice president and those kind of duties have been changed.
Yes.
Not in this stuff.
And one other thing, one thing unrelated to the officers that we propose to add is, under Article 8, we want to add a section K about the grievance committee. So other committees are defined in the Constitution. We wanted to also define the grievance committee in the Constitution as opposed to just the bylaws where it lives now.
A comment I would have about intent. One of the rationales that you guys provided for removing the vice president from the elections committee is that the vice president may be intending to run for office. Currently, at least from what I can tell in Article 6, Section B, there's nothing that stipulates that the chief elections officer cannot be running for an office in the next year.
The bylaws clarify the role of the chief election officer. So there's a second document on the website.
Yeah.
The bylaws. It will clarify those. It should be
Yeah,
clarified.
I'm pretty sure it's within the bylaws.
It's in the bylaws stipulating the makeup of the elections committee and the role of the elections committee holder, sure the office holder, and all that. That was not part of the changes that were made. So we didn't cover any of those here.
Article 1, Section 3, I'm not seeing anything that restricts the chief elections officer from running. I mean, yeah, and bylaws. I'm just saying that if that's the rationale, or at least a main part of the rationale for removing the vice president from the elections committee, that may be something that the CBC may want to consider as part of the description of the chief elections officer.
So we can actually do that. That's easy.
Yeah, just
Thank you.
You should probably join the CBC committee.
Yeah.
disrespecting.
Okay, so again, bring this to your committees or your departments, and then we'll talk about it, and most likely have a vote on it, because actually that would be the last time we can vote on it, would be the next Senate meeting before the elections. So, yes, we need to get that, bring that to, we'll address any questions you have at the next one. All right, thank you. So let's move on.
All right, thank you, Ben. Thank you, CBC committee. It's a lot of work and sometimes it's very tedious. I understand that, and thank you everyone who gave the suggestions. Now let's move on to the treasurer's report. Okay. Firstly, I will update on the major accounts. So first, in our GSA TRF, the travel fund account, the running balance is $4,569 for now after this week. And the cafe fund is a little tricky because we have many events approved, but not all of them were vouched yet. So currently we've approved $6,065, but the actual vouched number is 101 under. So we have 5,963 left in this account. So today I brought in the guests for the 3 cafe applications. They are anthropology, sociology, and Coley and Tripp. They're co-sponsoring for one event. So anthropology is requesting for $733, and the rest 2 cafes are requesting for $1,000 each. So after, so let's say if these 3 got approved today, our approved total in cafe will be $8,800 with 100 under. I just mentioned that. So that's the situation in this account. And we've been thinking about, as I mentioned earlier, after the preschool deadline, if there's anything left, I might move the rest of the balance to either GSA TRF or cafe as needed. And I've been motivating all the departments to spend their money wisely. Hopefully you all have big plans toward the end of the semester. If not, be generous to those departments or groups that need the money. So we're running out of time. Let's get to first to anthropology.
Scientific GFA, that's a management by association. So things like we are actually on the planning process for like deciding for events this semester. So we'll be open to collaborating with other departments if they need funding for an event.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
How much
you.
do you have?
We will be meeting on Monday and probably we'll decide events after that. So we can come to a figure only afterwards. So like if you need any information, please get back to us on the press.
Sure.
Hope you're not talking
Yeah.
about Gasso, Daniel, because Gasso
Yeah,
has tons of money.
I'm happy to use it because we have departments there that they have more than they can spend in our account,
and we have first and mid money. I'm more than happy to connect like from both sides. So shoot me an email if you need anything, and I will try my best. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with anthropology because well, the order is actually wrong. Anthropology put in their application first. So Ree or Mara,
Wait.
whoever, you can start.
Thank you for inviting me to come here. So we are organizing an event called Radical Archaeology Theory Symposium. We abbreviate it as RATS. And this is an event that usually takes place in northeastern universities. The last time it occurred in 2009. It was in Binghamton. And so we want to bring it back to Binghamton also this time, 2016. It was also the last time the Anthropology Gathers organization organized the conference. So that's a long time, so it's time for us to organize it again. We are bringing 4 keynote speakers, one of them from Canada, another one from Norway, and 2 others, one from Binghamton and another one from New York City. And we have over 25 speakers confirmed.
Just speak up a little bit, so everybody can hear.
We have 4 keynote speakers, and 2 of them they are international speakers. We have over 25 speakers coming from several universities from the East Coast, from Maryland, DC, Delaware, even people from Canada. And we have asked for support from different organizations. Because we have a keynote speaker who's coming from Norway, we asked the American Scandinavian Foundation to sponsor the speaker, but they declined the funding. So we managed to get some funding from the AGO, the Anthropology Gathers Organization, from the Convocations Fund, and the Material and Visual Arts DAE, who offered to sponsor the Norwegian speaker. So in the end, we only needed to get money to spend with some food. There's nobody for 2 days and a half. So we're asking these around $730 basically to pay for the meals and coffee breaks.
Okay.
If you have any
questions for Ree before we discuss it? Any? No? All right, I'd like to invite the representatives from anthropology to leave the room briefly, and we'll call you back after we have a decision. Thank you. So, any questions, concerns to raise regarding on this open application?
Okay, it looks like we're ready to vote. Can I get a motion?
I second it.
Daniel from anthropology. Wait, objections?
Wait.
Okay, do we have objections? Objections?
Seeing none, has been approved.
Okay.
Don't think everyone is gonna be approved like that.
Okay, so the application from anthropology is approved by the Senate. Next, next is sociology. So I have Hussein here to give us a presentation. Hussein, sorry.
So thanks. So I'll just be quick. So we have this biannual event, biennial event. So this is an event which is organized like once in 2 years by the students. So usually it's a big conference. We have it for 3 days. This time we're doing the same. We're trying to change the format a little bit. And so social sciences, you would have already got the call for papers. So we sort of want to engage an interdisciplinary conversation in this event. So that's the other thing is most of our expenses are for the speakers. And this time we changed the format. Is usually it's some big guy who comes and gives talks and things like that. But we now decided that we're going to have 3 graduate students who are going to be serving as keynotes. Now, some of us organizers have already, some of us know some of them, and the idea is to have graduate students who are doing some outstanding work in their fields. We're going to have them here. So the 3 speakers, one of them, Maita, she's of Syrian origin. She's working on a very interesting academic project, trying to link Arab and Black internationalism, but she's also been very active as a social activist and trying to address issues of Islamophobia, which is pretty big. And so she sort of agreed to speak here, and she's done this before, and we're glad to have her, so she's one of them. Then there's Nantina, who's also engaging European politics, especially looking at Greece and the sort of Greece and Quebec. So we sort of want to bring the speakers in here, and the other sort of change that we wanted to do was that since we're talking about some of these issues which seem contemporary and relevant, we also some of the organizers here are trying to go into town and bring some people in. For example, the Grandad Mosque, we have one of the organizers who knows about this. There's a lot of resettled populations in JC, for example, and issues like Islamophobia would be relevant, I guess, for a lot of these people. So we're having this at the downtown center. A lot of the talks are going to be at the downtown center, except one of the keynotes, I think. So that's pretty much it, and we sort of hope that all of you guys will be coming to the event.
Who's the third speaker?
Oh, sorry, the third speaker is Jennifer. She's again from the West Coast.